I was planning to do a similar kind of thing in terms of asking for show of hands. He's kind of stolen that, but I'll keep the very last bit of that. Can you put your hands up if you live and breathe accessibility? It's kind of what you do every day. Yeah, and then kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. Put your hands up if it's a relatively new thing. You're kind of on a journey of discovery, trying to work out how to do it. So about half and half. Okay, so I was certainly not too long ago exactly where you are. And I'm certainly not at the kind of other end of the spectrum. I like to think I'm kind of in between knowing something and having the privilege to lead a really great team who know an awful lot more about this than I do. It's a real privilege to be here tonight to talk about what we've achieved and our story and our journey. So the main title is How We Define and Embedded a Culture of Inclusive Design and Accessibility. But what the project was known in my head for quite a long time in the beginning was, help, we're building a new website. So my journey to this started about 10 years ago. I had the pleasure of running a small web development company in South Africa with my wife, and life didn't look too dissimilar to this, except I wasn't smartly dressed, and I was in the pool, and the laptop was out of the pool, which seemed far more sensible. And then we started a family, and we moved back to the UK. We were living with my parents for a few months, trying to run our agency still, and realized it wasn't quite going to work, wasn't quite as easy, kind of transferring a business between countries. And one of us had to get a job. So started the job hunt, and I was lucky enough to get an interview, a telephone interview, and about half an hour before the interview, I thought, okay, I need to just go through this job description, familiarize myself, make sure I understand it. And this phrase I've highlighted jumped out. An understanding of WCAG 2.0 accessibility standards. I had no idea what this is. I said to my wife, help, let's get Googling. So we found out web content accessibility guidelines, great, but then this huge, long, impenetrable document, way too much to understand in suddenly 30 minutes, or less than that by the time we got there. Fortunately, that never came up in the interview, and I got the job, so that was really good news. I was there, and that was for an insurance company. It was known for telling people to calm down. Sold Bonza car insurance. I hope you're getting the brands. I was there for a number of years, and then I had various roles in travel. And I have to say that accessibility really didn't feature much at all beyond in the job description. Kind of that should have an understanding, should know about. And it was, we had when I was in the insurance company, we had the classic letters on the font adjustment things. We thought, well, do people need that anymore? Surely browsers do all that. That was kind of a limit on understanding. And I think accessibility was very much considered like another thing. It was a check-boxing exercise, maybe a legal compliance exercise, but we didn't really understand the benefits of it. So then about 2.5 years ago, I joined Scope. Scope was going through a massive change, and it was a really exciting time to join. Scope's, as it says there, you probably worked out, is a pan-disability charity. And we're going through a huge transformation, huge strategic shift when we're deciding to sell about 2/3 of our business that we were known for, the schools, colleges, and homes and everything, that we were known for when we started back in the 1950s. We thought that's not right for Scope and how we can support disabled people and drive our mission of achieving everyday equality for disabled people. So, right, we need to change. So we sold that part of the business, and we had big digital ambitions. And I think so many charities and so many organizations are going through digital transformations, and I think we're probably doing it more far-reaching than most, and we're changing pretty much every system, all the way through from our CRM, our ERP, our finance systems. Pretty much everything's changing, which comes with a lot of opportunity. And certainly with CRM and having all this customer data and supported data, we think, okay, there's an opportunity to connect here with the digital experiences. We're also launching a number of new digitally enabled services. And a huge investment in self-service content is a really big part of what we do now. Just overhauling all our content and how we support disabled people and parents of disabled children with the questions and the challenges that they have. And at this time as well, looking at the website, trying to kind of support all this, our website was out of date, needed updates, a few versions out of date. And we were also going through a big new brand change. This was what Scope looked like, the website 2.5 years ago when I joined. And while we're working on this, the new brand was coming, far bolder, a lot more clarity in terms of what we're doing. And this all led us to think, right, we need to launch a new website. This is a kind of the natural thing we need to do. So we went through a process to get there, got the support from the board. They said, yep, you can go ahead. And along with the classic ambitions we put in place, like we want to increase conversion rate or kind of increase referral rate, whatever it may be, but specifically around accessibility, the number one thing I wanted to do, we had to be compliant. So it was real reputation risk. And this is the kind of thing that kept me awake. A nice thinking be with an audience like you guys, we just launched and everyone's saying Scope don't know what they're doing. And it's like, oh, this is a little bit scary. But beyond that, what I was really, really keen to do, we had this amazing brand, really exciting. A lot of energy has been put into that. And I really want to demonstrate that great design can combine with great accessibility to create a really fantastic experience. And I think along with those other things I was saying about our perceptions of accessibility, I think from a designer perspective, designers I've spoken to, I think some are saying, well, accessibility, surely that's going to put me in this straitjacket, right? It's going to stop me being creative. And we're saying, well, no, we have to demonstrate that that's not the case. It's actually an opportunity to do something really amazing. And taking it a step further, some research I came across recently said that within our sector, in the charity sector, 95% of charity sector websites in the UK don't comply with WCAG guidelines, which is really shocking. It's really surprising. So we were really keen, right, let's do it, and let's show others how to do it as well. So it's really exciting. I'm here tonight to kind of start this journey of talking about it. But that all led to this panic moment. Like, what do? We need a plan. We built a great team, some really good people. We knew how to build stuff. We knew about user experience. We knew how to create great experiences. I had a couple of people in my team who are very experienced with assistive technology, working with disabled people, so they understood that side. We had some of the other people in my team knew about kind of HTML and CSS and design, and we kind of took those two things together to start this journey. And in hindsight, looking back on reflection, there's 6 key things we did on our journey, both for the website and then how we embedded what we learned on that website into everything else we did. So I'm going to take you through those 6 now. First thing we did, great partnerships, was really important. We appointed Aqueduct as a developer and design agency for the project, and we made it very clear to them, look, accessibility is really important. They kept saying, yep, we got this. I said, no, accessibility is really important. Yeah, don't worry, you've got this. They've done it before. But we said, look, we're going to have to go above and beyond what you've done before. We also partnered with House Inclusion, so it's really good to see Jonathan in the audience today. And the 3 kind of teams together working very, very closely together, absolutely fundamental for the success of the project. So the next thing we did, we had to upskill ourselves really significantly. And again, this was with Jonathan's help. First thing we did was get everyone who was involved in the project, from the project managers and the product owners, together right at the beginning of the project. Right, how do we do this? And it was the thing that struck me straight away. It's like the classic experience of accessibility. You do it right at the end. Yeah, you do a checkbox exercise in your UAT or your QA stage, and you get this big report, and it's, oh my God, that's really scary and horrible. But what we did is make sure we considered accessibility throughout the project. Then we did training with our designers, our developers, our copywriters, and probably the biggest change we made was with our QA team. So the 2 guys I mentioned who are really experienced with assistive technology, then we trained up with Jonathan's help to really be able to do all the accessibility testing themselves. And they did a lot of it. And I think the key message that we got from Jonathan is we've got to be self-sufficient. And that was absolutely the big takeaway as well. So at the end of the project, we could carry on doing this by ourselves. We didn't need to lean on someone all the time to help us do it. The third thing we did, we really embraced the concept of inclusive design. I think Scope's been really conscious of the kind of co-creation. All the new services that we've been building over the last couple of years are all designed with disabled people and with disabled people's organizations. So a lot of testing, there's a lot of feedback that goes on to make sure that what we're building works for the audience we're building it for. So we consider this throughout each stage in the project. And for us, that was a lot of listening, a lot of asking questions, a lot of listening for people's needs and their experiences. So certainly at the discovery phase, we engaged with 12 people. In the design phase, we did about a 10-week design phase, and this is always all from flat designs through to interactive prototypes. Again, testing all the time. Does this work? Does this work for you? Alongside that, again, we're still working with Jonathan's team and getting expert reviews on this. So about halfway through this process, said, look, this is how far we've got. Can you let us know how we're doing? Again, that's really important to get this really critical comment. It wasn't too frightening, fortunately, but there were still things we could do that were really easy to fix and change at this point. We hadn't developed it yet, so it was relatively inexpensive to address. And again, that was helping to upskill the team. We learned a lot from this kind of feedback. And then to the build. I mean, it was a classic kind of waterfall type project when you had kind of discovery, design, etc. But we're building in 2-week sprints. So every time we had something was in the build that was just about testable, we would put it in front of people. We would get them to test it. And again, getting expert support on this as well. So we had 2 separate occasions where someone from Hassel Inclusion came in and sat with Aqueduct's developers and checked their code and kind of gave them advice along the way and helping them to upskill all the time as well. And that was really, really important. And then lastly, at the end, in UAT, again, testing with people. Huge amount of internal QA on this. Beyond this website going live, there was a number of other platforms that were rebranding at the same time, so the same kind of testing was going on. I was talking to Andy, the guy on my team who led this and helped me develop this strategy. He reckons he made 24,000 tests over the course of about 2 or 3 months on this. It's really, really kind of significant work. But of course, during that time, he learned, and his team learned an awful lot on how to do this. And those reds, we have 1 red in that screenshot I took there, but it was really interesting seeing them turn from lots of red, lots of fails, and gradually seeing them turn green. And then at the end of the project, about a month before we went live, we throw it over to Jakub, wasn't it, over there? And we said, right, okay, we're now ready for an external audit. We're still releasing some functionality. We got to that stage, and again, some stuff came back, but it wasn't too scary. Stuff we could address quite easily. I think there's only 3 high defects we needed to address. But again, it's far easier getting that than the potentially really scary situation we might have been if we'd only done that right at the end. So that's what the project looked like overall. It's really interesting getting kind of combination of that inclusive design principles, really engaging with our audience every step of the way. One thing I should have said is one of the really exciting things we're doing at Scope is we have our own panel of disabled users. We've got about 200 people on that panel now. It's growing all the time. And that's been so useful. At the start, we were using external recruitment agencies. But now when we do testing, we just tap into that panel, we bring people in. And it makes it just so much easier for us to test, which allows us to do this at scale and a lot faster and with a lot more agility. The other thing that I think gets overlooked quite a lot in accessibility is content. I think content doesn't get a huge shout out in the WCAG guidelines. It gets a few mentions, but that's not my garden, by the way, but it really could be. I naively thought, I said to my team, sure, we could just build this thing and lift and shift our content, right? It'll all magically work. They said, no, Ceri, we can't do that. Our website is like an overgrown garden. It's a bit of a mess. It's kind of grown arms and legs over the years. We need to review this. So we did a big content audit. So we checked all the items, all the content. We had about 1,700 pages of content. Checked everything, decided what are we going to bin? Okay, what do we need to keep? What new content do we need? And then we went through a content design process with this. And I think if you look at our advice and support section on the website, it's a whole separate set of talks you can go to on that, because the work those guys are doing is amazing. It's really, really good. So there's a couple of 100 pages on that, but the rest of the site, we try to follow a similar kind of content design principle, but a lot lighter. Of course, getting everything into plain English. It still amazes me that the average reading age in the UK is something like 9 years old. So if you're not putting stuff in plain English, you're missing out on a large part of your audience. That's really, really key. And then a huge amount of information architecture, which is still going on now. As we launch and release new content, we review this, and this is kind of the mega menu process. We spend a lot of time designing, working through, making sure this could work. Because we really believed for something to be accessible, there's no point just kind of making it work with a screen reader and making sure you got your HTML markup. It's actually got to be usable. You've got to be able to find the content easily. You've got to be able to digest and consume that information really easily. It's about removing those barriers for everyone, and that benefits everyone. It's not just people with particular access needs. And the overall result, we took 1,700 pages of content and really cut it down to 450 pages of easy to read, and hopefully, I think anyway, easy to find content, which we're really pleased with. And this is what we ended up with, which we're really excited and really proud, and suddenly I'm sleeping a lot better than I did at the start of the project. Alongside this is just one of our website, or one of our platforms. It's the biggest platform. It's our shop window, but we've got lots of other parts of our digital ecosystem, as I like to call it, our outward-facing digital real estate. Thought, well, we need to apply this, what we've done here, we need to start embedding this into everything we do. So we put together this framework based on our learnings in the project. So we had our website, which was new, and at the same time, we rebranded our community, our portal, where we deliver a lot of our services, our online services, our campaigning platform. We've got other small microsites for some of our fundraising efforts. We've got a microsite with Virgin Media for one of our partnerships there. And Mindful Monsters, I don't know if anyone's come across Mindful Monsters, but if anyone's got kids under the age of 10, this is amazing. It's doing really well for us. We're getting great feedback. It's just about mindfulness for children. And it's growing a lot, and we're launching a lot of new platforms on that at the moment. So the one on the right, launched a couple of weeks ago, is our online shop. So to do this, to support it, we created this concept of pillars, and 6 pillars we came up with. So the first 3 are about getting it right the first time. And I picked up quite early on at Scope that we weren't very good at procurement. And quite often we would procure it all, and suddenly we'd roll it out. And this is quite often internally for like an HR system or something. And we hadn't actually checked it for accessibility. And suddenly you're rolling out something that not all of your internal users could use. So we thought, right, we've got to embed accessibility questions and thinking right at the beginning into the RFIs, into the RFPs. It's part of our architectural principles. So, and by those I mean, it includes things like data protection and GDPR and security. How does it fit in with the rest of our real estate? The development stuff I've already spoken about. It's kind of capturing that in just a couple of bullets. Then there's training. We're starting to develop a set of training guides and comms. We've got a Microsoft team, which is a bit like Slack, for those of people who haven't heard it, where people can ask questions and ask for support. So that's all right. When we build stuff, when we do new things, let's get those 3 things right. The next 3 pillars was all about the checks and assurance. Once something's live, how do we ensure it's live? It's not just a moment in time, hey, yes, we're accessible, let's go, we can forget about it. It's an ongoing thing, we all know this. So we came up with 3 things. So manual testing. So my team, the digital service team, they all know about this. They can all do their own testing, but we've got 2 people, as I mentioned, who have a lot of knowledge now and a lot of experience doing this kind of testing. They can support the entire team, the entire organization, these tests. And also testing with disabled people, testing with our audiences, testing with assistive technology like screen readers. We're starting to use Site Improve, so just having that continuous testing all the way through. And then also having external audits as well. And this checks and assurance, I'll come into it in a minute, but it's a flexed approach. And we publish these results, we publish on the website. We also report on this as a KPI to the board as part of our department's KPIs. And it's really important for us that we're transparent and open and honest about this and show, look, we know we're not perfect, but we're on a journey, we're committed to the journey of being better. And that helps us to encourage feedback. And these 6 pillars are supported by our accessibility partner at key points in the journey. So what does that look like in terms of our categories of risk and the checks and insurance? Because there's no point spending the same amount of effort trying to get our website, which we know gets loads of traffic, really, really good at investing as much time and effort into that, versus something like one of our fundraising platforms, which might only get a couple of thousand visits a month. So we came up with the concept of the AX factor, which we really liked. So that's the calculations. We take the number of thousand visits per month times the number of changes per year, because we think the more traffic it gets, and the more often a platform changes, the higher the risk of there being something wrong with it. So for anything over 5,000, we said, right, that's a high risk category. Sorry, it's over here. Then medium and low, so anything under low is 500. And for this, we did, so the approach for the high testing, we do our own internal QA testing. We test with assistive technology, so we've got a set of devices we can use. We do an external audit, and we use Site Improve as well. And this gives us an idea of how frequently we do it. This is still very new, so we're still refining this. For the medium size, we don't, which one do we do? We don't do tests on internal technology, and we do the internal testing less frequently. And for the low, it's just internal, and it should be off the page here. We use Site Improve on those as well. What that looks like for our websites, so our website gets about 250,000 visits a month, changes every week, right? So it gives us an AX factor of 13,000, and falls into those high categories. Community as well is high. Mindful monsters, not quite as risky, we feel, so we don't put so much effort into ensuring it's as accessible. The last thing in the 6 things I was talking about that we've done is, as everyone should be now following BSA 8878, if I remember the number correctly, thank you. And also following the guidelines for the public sector that came out in September. I'm looking at Alistair for this. They came in September last year? Yes, accessibility regulations, so not guidelines, regulations. So in terms of one of the things you're doing is publishing and stating that this is where we know we've got issues. PDFs are a nightmare for us. We've got loads of PDFs, and loads of them are really badly put together. So we're on a process now. We've got a list of how popular there are, and we're going through those and kind of remarking them up and recreating so they are accessible, and we'll work for screen readers. One of the other things we're doing, which is trying to go a little bit beyond this, is actually starting to publish feedback from users. This is something we've committed to, so every time someone says, look, you're not doing this right, or I've got an issue with this, we'll publish this, and we'll review this every quarter and publish those stats. And it's a bit like when I worked in financial services, every quarter you had to publish your complaints statistics and say, right, this is how many complaints we've had, this is how many have gone to the financial ombudsman, and this is where they've gone to. And it's a similar kind of process, but not as scary and not as big scale. And we want to encourage more feedback because we're not getting that much. But it's all about ensuring that people know they're listened to. And when people do provide feedback, we can say, yeah, we're listening to you. You can tell us more, and we've done something about it. Some reflections on the projects and kind of where we've been in the last kind of 18 months since we started this journey. How many developers are there in the room? Hands, quite a few, right? You guys love a challenge, yeah? My wife's a developer. She's amazing, and she's always, the time I find her the most excited and also the most frustrated is when she's learning something new. And what I found is developers can actually become completely obsessed with accessibility. If you say, right, this is your job, this is what I want you to do. With Will, who is the front-end developer, Aqueduct, the number of times, well, first of all, he said to us, right, I've got this, I'm going to make this brilliant, best accessible website ever. And every time I spoke to our project manager there or the CEO, said, oh, Ceri, Will's really obsessed with accessibility. And that was really cool. It was great to hear that. And I think, how can we open this up? How can we make it easier for developers and everyone who works with accessibility when they're creating things? Make it easier for them to do their jobs and kind of empower them to do it. So one of the things we started thinking about is, and Annie and I talk about this quite a lot, is how do we make accessibility more accessible? It's a really long word. It's really hard to say. It's like 13 letters, 6 syllables. It's ridiculous. I'm going to say something controversial, and I apologize. I really struggle with A11Y as a concept because it's, for someone who's new to this world, it doesn't really mean much. And the first time I came across it, I was like, oh, what does that mean? So, our perception is maybe this is just how, we talk about it within the accessibility community versus how do developers talk about accessibility, or how could they talk about accessibility? So at Scope, we've started talking about accessibility as AX. The reason being, it looks fantastic with UX. It just sits perfectly. And the amazing thing is, if you do a really good job of doing accessibility, you've got a long way down the road of making really good usability as well. On the flip side, if you're doing really good usability, if you do that really well, you're a long way down to creating a really accessible experience as well. And I think that's really, really key. So, a while ago, certainly 10 years ago when I had that first phone call, and that first 7 years of my career, I thought accessibility was really difficult. I thought it was something else someone else did, and like, how are we going to learn this? And it seemed quite impenetrable. But I don't think it is anymore. And I think about the effort and the investment we've made in this project and at Scope in the last kind of 18 months. It just needs commitment, and it just needs empowerment. There needs people who are involved who are going to make a difference, to be empowered, to learn, to be able to do their jobs and kind of do their best they can for the users. And lastly, I'd like to say, I think really important to have really clear ambition of what you want to achieve with accessibility. Having really great partners to work with, whether it's an accessibility partner who can help upskill, help support you, whether it's a development agency you're working with if it's external, can create fantastic results for everyone. And thank you.
So I'm going to pick some. Ben, do you want to grab one of those and do the other side of the room? So I'm going to pick some questions from here first. So we've got a couple of questions around procurement.
Okay.
So what do your RFP questions look like? What's the response been like from suppliers? RFP, is that request?
Request for proposal.
Okay, yep.
RFI, request for information. Sorry, I know it's not very accessible using acronyms in a presentation. It's been really mixed. We don't have a set of standard questions in our procurement process, but it's something we do for every project. Every time the procurement team pick up a project which has some kind of digital requirement, they look at it, and a lot of the feedback, quite honestly, is amazing. People just have never heard of accessibility, and it's actually really challenging.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we get to the point where we actually choose the partner or the solution that are most committed to making a change, because we think, well, if we can help them improve the change and then embed that into the core product and roll it out to all their clients, that's a win for more than just us.
So that actually is related to one of the other questions of like, did you find it hard to find suppliers that could provide accessible things?
Yeah, I mean, certainly not building a website, that was easy. But certainly for other things we have done, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. We've got a question here. Do you provide BSL and Easy Read on the website?
No, we don't. It's something we spoke about. And I think this is one of the times I get slightly uncomfortable because I'm not an expert in this field at all, but certainly the concept of kind of what's reasonable for us to do and the cost of providing BSL is quite a lot. So we've taken the decision at this point not to do it. It's something we might explore in the future down the line.
Cool. Okay. Then we've got a load of questions that are kind of around the user testing. So what was the profile of the user testers?
So we tried to get a range of people with different needs. Not all of them were disabled, but they would have a different range of access needs. Some people using screen readers, and I think what was quite amazing, not on this project, but a previous one, we tried to test something on our portal, and they couldn't even get past the login screen, and that was really eye-opening for us. Unfortunate pun. So range of people with different access needs. different ages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit how you use them? Like, is it just traditional usability testing, or is it feedback, or kind of do they do lots of different types of activities?
It was mainly just a one-on-one usability test. So yeah, just sitting down with them for anything from half an hour to an hour, just going through key journeys on the site and just getting their feedback.
Do you include children in your testing, especially for websites aimed at children?
No, because all our websites are aimed at adults, but we are in the process of building, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but you won't share it, right? We're in the process of building an app for our Mindful Monsters product, which will be for children. And then, yes, that's going to be tested in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant. So then leading on, so you talked about co-creation with disabled people. Can you give an example or two of how people with disabilities influence the design or functionality?
Okay. I mean, I guess certainly on this project, there were certainly I don't even remember when I was talking about the information architecture and the design of that menu. There's quite a bit of that which people found challenging, so we had to play around with that, and certainly the language we used. Trying to get people to find that section of the website is really important to us, the information and advice. And in the user testing we did with disabled people, they couldn't see the button, so making that button really clear, and it's actually quite long if you go to the website. And we kind of tried it ironically to make it really long descriptive, but it actually works. So, yeah.
Cool. We've then got a few about tools. So was automated testing used during the testing of the Scope website? And if so, what was used and which is the most reliable? And how did you pick the automated tool that you used?
So we didn't use any automated tools. During the build process, we used Site Improve now. Actually, I stand corrected. We used Site Improve right at the end when we got it connected and Site Improve could see infrastructure. But that was the only one we used. And we used it mainly from that perspective around the content QA and kind of classic things and spelling and grammar and kind of broken links and things like that.
Cool. I'm constantly surprised at how many disability charities have inaccessible websites. What's your silver bullet bit of advice for other charities?
Do this? I don't know. I think the key thing is finding someone to work with who can help upskill your team. I think that's the first thing. It doesn't take a huge investment to do it. You think about the investment you make versus the quality, the impact and the experience you can develop for everyone. I think that's really key. And then it's just getting buy-in from whoever holds the purse strings. At senior level, say, look, we are going to do this. This is our plan. Get everyone to buy into doing it.
So that leads really well into this question. So I have a struggle getting my 2 directors to cough up resources for people and money to take accessibility seriously. How do you convince the board? Is it until they get a fine?
It's quite interesting. Alongside this, we have another project running called the Big Hack, which is a digital influencing thing. And part of that is looking at the business case for inclusive design and accessibility. There's lots of research about this. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm not as close as I probably should be to that side of things, but I think the business case to provide an accessible experience for the 20% of people who need it is really significant. And the thing is, if you're doing accessibility well, if you commit to it, it actually helps everyone because everyone needs it at some point. And it's just really important to do.
Mm-hmm. What was the biggest challenge when upskilling QAs and the development team?
I think the development team were pretty good actually already. I don't think that was particularly difficult. Okay. I think the QAs, I guess for them, and I hope they don't mind me saying this, they didn't have an awful lot of experience kind of handling digital stuff. I think, I'd expect normally you would get a QA person who had been doing QA as their job all the time, and then you said, right, you know that stuff you do when you're checking code and you're checking user journeys, you also need to check all these things as well. So it's a little bit of change for them, but I think they had a really, really good understanding of disability and the challenges people face when things aren't accessible for them. So that was really, really a great start.
Last question from here, and then we'll go to the audience. Are there any standard guidelines where we can say if we meet them that the site is accessible?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, I don't think any site can ever be claimed to be fully accessible. I think that's really challenging because things change all the time, right? You know, you're always making changes to the website, whether it's content or code releases. But certainly the WCAG 2.1 guidelines, the BS 8878 are out there as well. So there's plenty of things to go to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any questions from people in the audience? Over here first.
Hello there. You mentioned that you created a panel.
Yes.
Can you talk me through how you went about doing that?
So it doesn't sit within my team. It's a panel that we use across Scope. So Scope does lots of things. We're a kind of campaigning organization as well. We do a lot of research as well as delivering services for disabled people. So the panel, we advertise for people on our community platform. We get a lot of traffic for that. And we just incentivize people to join the panel. And it's growing all the time.
Sorry, just another question
Yep.
then. So the community panel, has that got specific outreach to like disability organisations? Because of
Yeah.
do you know that you're going to attract the proportion that you would need
Yeah,
for regular testing?
certainly that community forum, the large percentage of people who engage with that forum are disabled people, both asking questions and supporting other people there who are asking those questions. We've got quite a lot of connections with DPOs who feature on the community as well. That's something we're actively looking to grow.
Okay, thank you.
What's a DPO?
DPO is a disabled people's organisation. Yep.
Hey, Ceri.
Hey.
So I just wanted to say back to you, thank you so much. It was awesome working with you as well.
Sure, thank you.
And so there's so much about what you presented that is really, really exciting. I think the thing that I've never ever seen anywhere else, and I just wanted to A, just bring people's attention to it, and B, see how it's going, is that whole commitment to transparency of those comments back. When in BS 8878 we said it would be really good to say what your website can't do and all of the limitations, everyone thought we were insane and we were going to get loads of lawyers. People have come alongside that. I think you've taken it that one step further. So I think that's absolutely amazing. Yeah. How's it going?
So honestly, we don't get a huge amount of feedback, and I don't know whether that's because we do a really good job and there's nothing to say. I'm sure it's not. We have got probably 3 comments so far of things we've picked up that we will publish in about 7 weeks when we've got through our first quarter cycle. But we need more, and I think that's something we've certainly picked up in kind of various talks I've been to, where you would get people saying, you know, who have no useful eyesight, and they're saying, look, if they were to complain about every single website they came across that wasn't accessible, that's all they'd ever do. But it's how can we start that conversation so people know that they can help to make things better.
Yeah. So good luck.
Cool, thank you.
I think there's a question right at the back there, Ben.
Hi, I just have one question. You were saying that you were following... Sorry, can you hear me? Better?
Just about.
Okay, I will try. Just pick up. So basically you were saying that you were following an inclusive design approach. And I was wondering how many people with disabilities did you include in every round of testing, and how many people without disabilities did you include in every round of testing? Okay.
I didn't do the testing, so I can't give you an accurate answer, but I believe it's about at least 80-90% of people had some kind of disability.
Okay.
So the majority, yes.
So the majority
because
of them...
we got them from our panel, and everyone on our panel has a disability.
Okay, so most of them had a disability?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So I've got a question, actually. So
cool.
With all of the testing you did with people with disabilities, was there any findings that came out about improvements that people should be making to their websites that aren't captured by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines?
Can I get back to you on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly go and find out and ask the team
Yeah.
if there was, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Because I think like you're in a really unique position where your website is predominantly used by people with disabilities. You've done loads of testing.
Yep.
It would be fascinating to find out, kind of what has been found by that. So I will chat to you separately about that.
Cool.
I've probably got time for one last question, if anyone's got a question.
Is there anything that you'd have liked to have on your website that you couldn't have on because it wouldn't have met the guidelines?
That's really interesting. I honestly think, no, I don't think there is. I think there was no point in the project where we thought, actually, no, we can't do that.
So they didn't constrain you?
No, not at all. I think the biggest challenge was doing that kind of mega menu, that information architecture, because that was really complex, how we structured that and how we did it. We spent a lot of time talking about it and testing it, but at some point we think, oh, maybe we can't do this, but we plowed ahead and we tested it and it does work. So